So hello guys, I'm going to do a quick little overview of my first game playing Tahm Kench on the PBE. As a Tahm Kench main on NA, I have 2 D2 accounts and 1 D3 account currently. I'm hoping to give you guys some of my opinions on Tahm Kench on the PBE so far. This is my first game playing him. It is a bit of a stomp. PBE obviously isn't the best indication of player skill because, I mean, in this game, I'm obviously playing it versus someone who's not very great at the game, but hopefully this PBE game will give myself and hopefully you guys an idea of Tahm Kench's current overall strength and what needs to be adjusted before he goes to live. Okay, so once again, player skill, obviously it's not ranked, so people aren't playing based on ELO. So Shen does like level 1 fight me with taunt. Obviously Tahm Kench on live is a character where level 1 you can just fight anyone. That being said, I don't think I would have. I don't think any Shen would ever take that fight in like high ELO, but typical, just regular kill in lane. So this game is a bit of a stomp, but I just want to give my overall thoughts on like his abilities and stuff. Having your Q be a 2-second higher cooldown at level 1 does feel pretty bad. The biggest nerf that I felt throughout this game was his passive damage. You'll see me hover it like a bunch of times throughout the game, but his passive damage level 1, well, it going from 4% of your total max health to 2.5% is huge. Losing out on 10 damage on autos level 1 is kind of crazy. Yeah, passive went from 4% to 2.5% is like the biggest change. So it does like really does affect your overall dueling potential early. But I really don't think the Q change is too big. You max it first anyways. Now you're forced to max it because you do need it to be on that 5-second cooldown. The stun being lowered from 2 seconds to 1.5 seconds does feel a little bit rough, but nothing to completely change how you'll play him by any means. So I don't know if you can actually hit that raw like typically, or if that Shen is just not very good at the game. But I do think your typical Tahm Kench combo will be hitting Q and then into W. I think if you hit Q into W, characters without mobility will get hit by your W almost certainly. Your W is very hard to hit raw though without any slows or anything. It's a pretty long wind up and it's pretty well indicated before you dodge it. The slow is nerfed early game on his Q from 70% to 40%, but it actually doesn't scale at all, does it? No, it's 40% flat. I actually didn't notice the scaling on his, or the slow on his Q being that much lower. It definitely is noticeable, like, later. So, like, once again, like, not the highest quality game that Shen walked into my W there. That being said, he dies regardless of if he walks into it or not there, just based on W placement. I think W mainly is going to be used as a tool to reposition yourself throughout fights. But I think like just hitting raw knockups is almost impossible. What I would really like to see from the W is I would like to see its damage to minions and monsters be reduced. Sorry, increased. Because it's not really a good wave clearing ability. His old W you would use sometimes to shovel waves, and this one just feels a little bit worse for that. See, I tried to use W there, and I immediately mouse over. I'm like, what the fuck? How low is the range of this ability? It's crazy how low that is. You can't really use it at all as like a mid-fight engage tool. Yeah, it was longer. They've nerfed it since he's been on the PBE, but it's definitely not something you can just like use raw, I don't think. I think it's way better in teamfights than his old W though. Against enemies, that is. See, like once again, right there, hitting the slow kind of guarantees your W. I think that's going to be the main use of it, is you apply a stack with your Q, use W to get on them, and while they're in their knockup, you get another stack or two before you get to use Q again. Jazzy just said in chat that it's a little bit hard to see the difference between 2 and 3 stacks on the skin. So what they're actually doing, instead of making this skin more visible, they're making all of his skins less visible. They're making it so all of his skins have the same color stack animations. So I used first ultimate. It doesn't do that much damage, is like the main thing I noticed there. But the main thing I noticed about his ultimate is, yeah, his munch doesn't do that much damage. It's about 20% more than his old W. I just try to get away here. I don't. But the slow reduction, before on live right now, you have a 90% slow on yourself when you eat an enemy. It is only 40% when eating an enemy on PBE right now. That feels really, really nice. You're able to eat an enemy and just drag them so far. It is like a pseudo Skarner ult in that regard. I come in for like a little fight. I want to like be able to like use my global pressure, kind of like live Tahm Kench, but he really just doesn't have the same map mobility as you'd really have hoped. I understand that his W can't be like super long range, but I would love to see it like scale up to like longer range. It only scales up 200 range from rank 1 to rank 5. I would love to see it scale up like a full 1,000 range. Like maybe that's asking for too much, but it does really feel bad not being able to use your W really outside of just like trades and stuff. Exactly. For context, Ezreal Q I think is 1,100 range. Tahm Kench W starts at 1,000 range and goes to 1,200 range. So your W starts lower range than Ezreal Q and then gets 100 range more than it by max rank. God, her thing being able to block that is really annoying. Once again, though, you still are a really good character at chasing people down. One thing that I noticed that they made a change. So I did a presentation for the podcast where I talked about the Tahm Kench changes and what I would like to see changed. They have reverted the Tahm Kench E change, his gray health shield, from in combat to taking damage. So now if you're in combat, you can still... you can attack while still regenning, which is like a huge change. I'm really glad they did it. 4 seconds is still a long time to have to wait before you start regenning, but being able to actually just auto attack and not just sit AFK for 4 seconds is a life changer. It'll come into play a couple times. Yes, his Q does apply stack now. I honestly don't think it comes in handy that often. Mainly it might just be because I'm playing silly with it. I'm not like used to having it apply stack, so I'm not playing around it properly. But I didn't notice it made too much of enough difference this game. I just hear it does. I wouldn't have been able to kill her without that stack. Yeah, enemies don't see your W immediately, which the main thing is if you use your W like in front of them, like they see you use your W, they're going to be able to dodge it 100% of the time. If you use it from a bush or something like that, it's a little bit harder to dodge because the indicator is very front loaded. Like the animation on the front end is like very long where the back end isn't as long. But if a character has any form of mobility, think like a Riven, an Aatrox, anyone with any sort of dash, you shouldn't be able to hit W on them, just ever. I think you usually have to use W in combination with your Q, sorry. Or else I think it's not that strong of an ability, like overall. I do like the fact that, so your Q applies the stack, so you can threaten third stack with just Q auto. Which it's a really, really nice trade for a change, I guess, for... Like, the Shen's just not that good, so like this obviously isn't a very good indication of how lanes typically would go. But it's interesting. Yeah, QRing isn't very useful most of the time. So once again, like here I'm like literally waiting, and then I realize, oh hey, I'm allowed to auto attack and actually regen because it's not in combat anymore. It's just not taking damage, which is a really fucking nice change. I'll hover it here. Yeah, not the highest quality game, guys. Sorry about that. Once again, this took me 8 Qs to get one Tahm Kench game because everyone locks it in or people dodge when you lock it in. There's a couple times this game where I try to use my W like old W, like Munch. Anyways, I just pushed down this tower, pretty basic. TP into a fight down here. Like, this game is just a bit of a stomp. I want to like try to like limit test a little bit here, but I got stunned out of my W. But I wanted to see kind of like what I can really do. Like, his damage feels very good still. It's just like you're a different character is the reality. I don't think you're as big of a level 1 lane bully as you used to be, But you're fucking way tankier. There'll be a fight late game where I live for way longer than I ever would on old Tahm Kench. W is a worse AoE on minions, I believe now. It feels at least worse. Mostly because it's a longer cooldown. So your W starts at a 21-second cooldown, and it gets reduced by 30% if you hit an enemy champion. See, it just went from 18 to 12 there because I hit the Shen. Also, I'm just limit testing here. Just trying to do some dumb shit. I think I die for it. My heal there on my Q is 180, by the way. So watch my Q heal here. 160 health heal. God, the Q heal is kind of nice, man. It feels good. You're definitely a very different character, but it feels pretty sick. But yeah, as I was saying for the W AoE, so your current W is 21-second cooldown, reduced by 30% if you hit an enemy champion, whereas your old W was a 20-second cooldown, but it was halved if you used it on enemies rather than allies. So, meaning if you used your W on minions, you could use it every 10 seconds, where now if you use your W on minions, it's 20 seconds. So your wave clear has gone down significantly. I would love to see some sort of change to that. If I hit my Q there, by the way, I probably heal for 170 and live. His Q heal is a very, very important hit in a lot of fights, especially when you're low. Because it is percentage missing health, which is a... I don't like percentage missing health heals because it feels like you have to min-max when to use them. But it does feel very rewarding when you hit it when you're low. His auto attacks, because of his passive change, is massive though. 4% to 2.5% is a fucking crazy change. I'd love to see it even if they brought it back to the old scaling amount. When Tahm Kench was first released, his on-hit passive damage was tied to his ultimate rank. Meaning at rank 6 you had like 1% or whatever, then at rank 11 you had 2%, then went to 3%, I think. I would love to see that scale up. Maybe go like 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, or something like that. That'd be a cool way of doing it. It also incentivizes more solo lane play if you do that change. I also don't use my ultimate on an ally once this game, mainly because I wanted to limit test how you'd feel like as a top laner. I do still think that using his ultimate on allies is just better. Providing your ally with a 600 health shield is fucking crazy. I don't think there's a world in which using it on enemies is better in team fights than using it on allies. Especially if you're in comms with them. Obviously comms like does change the game a fair bit though. I do think the change to his passive does make it more viable to go ability haste rather than attack speed in your runes, but I don't think it's like enough to make it a clear call. That right there, by the way, is an example of... I'll just go back really quick. This right here is an example of like the movement speed reduction. Only getting slowed by 40% when you eat an enemy is like huge. I would have been under that tower my entire W duration with old Tahm Kench. But with new Tahm Kench, I'm out of the tower in 2 autos, which is crazy. I think I limit test and die here. I think I play like pretty silly. Oh, I tried to eat her there. That's what it is. So I tried to use W as my munch, but obviously I don't have that ability anymore. So I think I ended up dying here. Oh, look at this heal. Heal's so good, man. The heal feels really good on him. He's definitely going to be weaker like early game. But I think his like team fights feel fucking really good. We'll have to see. Also, your W, compared to your ultimate, doesn't get canceled by, look at that juke. Fucking guy got his ankles broken. Your W doesn't get canceled by damage. It only gets canceled by CC. Definitely a little bit to be learned about timings on using W, but he feels alright, honestly. Like, I definitely made too much of a crybaby fucking voice on the podcast about it, but he feels playable. I would like to see some changes to base stats. I would like to see some base stats better. I'd love to see his passive get some scaling to it. But overall, he feels fine. I do think the new W sound is so fucking loud, though. Like, I feel like it's just way louder than any other ability in the game. So that was me trying to use my W in the middle of the fight. It feels like it's actually pretty viable to use in the middle of the fight. It only gets canceled by CC, and typically as a tank, you're not being CC'd by allies, or at least not being focused and being CC'd as a tank. So you're pretty free to use your W like aggressively in fights, which is cool. Because if you're on AD carry and then they like reposition fully, you can use your W just like dive their backline a second time, which is very, very unique to new Tahm Kench. Oh, this is where this is a really good example of his healing. I just go for some goofy shit here. Using his ultimate on enemies feels really bad, though. Like, look at the cooldown. 1 minute and 10 seconds for that damage. I would love to see some cooldown reduction on it when you use it. This is just me doing dumb shit. But look at the healing. So if I'm old Tahm Kench, I die here 100 times out of 100. I do still die here, by the way. But look at the healing. Watch these Qs. Big heal. Big heal. 250 health on that heal. Like, healing 250 when you're low is fucking crazy. Healing 250 on a 5-second cooldown. I don't know, man. It feels really, really good. Rushing something like Spirit Visage is going to be insane on the character, I think. Anyways, just final thoughts on my very first game of PBE Tahm Kench. Once again, game was a hard stomp. I did lane against someone who didn't look like they've played League of Legends before, so I did get more fed than I typically would in a game. But overall thoughts. Passive. Let's go base stats first. Base stats, his base stats feel fine. I think I complained too much. Getting the 30 health nerf, the armor nerf, and the magic resist nerf does feel a little bit rough, and I'm sure I'll notice it more in higher ELO games where I get punished for those things. But they're not game-breaking by any means. Passive. Passive feels bad, man. Losing 10 attack damage on auto level 1 because of your passive is rough, especially when it's mixed damage. Having mixed damage allows the enemy to itemize the enemy has to itemize so differently that they can't just get like raw effective stats by going like Bramble or Negatron early. So I would love to see passive scaling on it. Maybe at level 6, 11, and 16, it goes from 1.5% to 2.5% to 3.5%, or something like 2.53 even would be cool scaling. I would love to see it late game. You have your health mattering a little bit more on your auto attacks, because you start to fall off there anyways. I don't think really giving him that extra little bit back would break the character by any means. His Q feels fine. The cooldown level 1 being 7 seconds instead of 5 feels a little bit rough. The slow being 40% instead of 70% is a pretty substantial nerf, but it's not going to break the character. His Q is already too strong. Giving him a percentage missing health heal is fucking crazy. Late game, you are an unkillable monster with your shield and your Q just rotating in and out of each other. But I honestly don't think his Q is bad by any means. I think applying stacks feels really good. It allows you to pressure munches post 6 really, really nice. Not having the pressure with early game munch feels kind of bad, but post 6, like, you have crazy pressure with Q auto Q auto eat as a combo. W, I'd love to see some changes to W. The main thing I want to see with the change to W is the fact that it needs to do damage to minions and monsters, increase damage to minions and monsters. Jungle Tahm Kench is dead on this patch. His clear is slow as fuck, man. It is so bad. And then your wave clear in lane just feels really, really bad too. Your cooldown on your W is 20 seconds, whereas on current live Tahm Kench with your munch and spitting minions is 10 seconds. We need to see some increased damage there, or else his wave clear is kind of dead. You really rely on having either Sunfires or Frostfire as your wave clear. But yeah, I would love to see some changes to that ability. Overall, I think it's fine. Maybe it's a little bit too slow, but if it's any faster, then it becomes a fucking nightmare for anyone who doesn't have mobility to play against. So fair game on that. E's great. I do think that having to wait 4 seconds to get healed back up is a long time, but I can fully admit as a Tahm Kench player that 2.5 seconds for the regen was too fast. It felt very bad that I could dip into a bush for 2.5 seconds and regen half my health bar. So I think it's fine. I'm glad they changed it from in combat to not taking damage. That feels really nice. It feels nice not having to just not attack anything for 4 seconds. I can actually still attack stuff. I just can't take damage to start regenning. And then lastly is ultimate. We need some changes to the ultimate. The damage is too low for using it on enemy, and the benefits of using it on ally are just too fucking high. Spitting your ally out with a 600 health shield is fucking crazy. No other support provides their AD carry with that big of healing and shielding, so I see no reason not to use it on allies when possible. I think ways to compensate this and make it more of an on enemy usability is to reduce the cooldown. If you eat an enemy with your ultimate, make it at most half cooldown, if not maybe 25% reduced cooldown. Having a minute and a half cooldown for your ultimate using it on an enemy feels really bad, especially when we went from that ability being 20% less damage but on a 20-second cooldown or 10-second cooldown. It feels ridiculous to use. Anyways, I'm really happy with the rework overall. He's going to play much differently than current Tahm Kench. You can't just smash your head into a wall and win every level 1 fight. I'm excited to play him more, and hopefully he'll help me climb even higher than Diamond 2. Cool.